From the worldwide headquarters of More Sports and Les Levine, it is a Wednesday night. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to More Sports and Les Levine into its 23rd consecutive year. And, of course, it's seen exclusively on cleveland.com and almost exclusively on cleveland.com because you have the plain dealer, Terry-Pluto, who has written 400 books, 3 of them in the last week.
I wish it was that easy.
Hey,
but Browns Blues continue to sell.
I know,
well.
and
yes.
I want to talk about that because more word had come out from ESPN, which we knew almost everything, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple new things. Did I know that Hugh Jackson dropped an F-bomb
when he got fired?
No,
Get
but
out of my office.
I read that and I believe it.
How about with all the television screens they had and the wrong movie got up?
That I didn't hear that one either. So, but for the most part, in fact, it's one of those things I've done that too, where you read maybe somebody's book or whatever, and you think that's a good idea for a story, and you basically take the cake and refrost it in your own way, and that's what he did. You know, I spoke last night at Avon Library, by the way. It was a huge crowd. I was really thrilled because it was so cold, and I was asked about that whole thing, and I said
they were looking for a place to get warm.
They were, yeah. They have heat in Avon, which is good. But they said, well, why do you think he wrote that story now? I said, well, actually, the story now is a boring story for if you want to get a bunch of internet hits. The story being that Jimmy Haslam actually has turned over the front office to John Dorsey. You know, yeah, he was involved in, the different things in terms of who the coach is going to be. But in the end, they did what Dorsey wanted them to do.
The thing that did surprise me out of that is talking about the 5 committee members.
Yeah.
And 4 of them wanted McDermott. And
that one I didn't know. I knew Sashi wanted McDermott. I did not know the others did.
So apparently Haslam wanted Hugh at that point.
Yeah.
So how come 4 for this guy and 1 for that guy gets this guy?
Well, I would say, you know what the problem with owners are? You know what the problem with the owners?
Yeah, they think they're smarter than everybody.
No, they're actually the owner, too. It doesn't matter.
I forgot about that.
Well, you mentioned before, right before you went on the air, one of the dumbest things, and that covers some real territory, that Ted Stepien ever did was?
Yeah, hiring Bill Musselman.
There was nobody else in Northeast Ohio would do it, but he's the owner. And he kept rehiring him.
I don't think he had I don't think Ted Stepien had an agenda to anything.
No, he just sort of did things. But in terms of, I was talking to one executive, and he said to me, all owners have input on the coach, almost like veto power. Maybe they're not picking, but they might take one of your guys.
They're not going to dinner with 7 guys.
So exactly. So they might just say, I just don't want that guy. And like Stefanski, okay, the analytics guys like Stefanski. So he was the runner-up. So what? He didn't get the job.
What do you mean, that he was getting blamed for almost hiring him?
Yeah, that's what some people. I said, well, so what?
If he hired him, you can blame him. But if he doesn't hire him, it's hard to blame him.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a young, interesting coach that the analytics people liked. And over here's another young, interesting coach that the football people liked. So they talked to them both twice. Frankly, it was set up with Freddie speaking last in the whole first round of interviews so that, it's kind of like when you want to, in a courtroom, do you want to give the first concluding statement or the second one? You always want to give the second one.
I want to have the guy who's not guilty.
Yeah, right, and exactly that. So,
well, but wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Freddie Kitchens, if he doesn't have Baker Mayfield in his hip pocket, I guess is the best way to say it, he's not anywhere on the list.
No, he's not. And if he doesn't have an 8-game, as John Dorsey kept calling it, an 8-game resume,
right,
where you lay out, it was almost like those weight losing pictures, those weight pictures. The guy weighs 320 over here and he weighs 187 over there. Right. Well, Baker Mayfield, the first 8 games, the stats over here, where he had nearly as many interceptions as touchdown passes and kept getting sacked. And over here, he's got 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, sacked 6 times. And this over here, this guy was not calling the plays, and here he was. So who do we want to call the plays?
Yeah.
I mean, this is not calculus.
So a little luck involved. If Freddie Kitchens writes the book 10 years from now, that book has to include, boy, I was lucky to get that job.
And I fell on Baker Mayfield. Although, frankly, most coaches, would we be talking about Belichick had he not fallen in with Tom Brady? And by the way, speaking
we don't know
of
that
luck,
answer.
I doubt we'd be saying he's one of the greatest ever because
No, but he'd win he would still win.
Of course he would win, but we would not be saying is he the next the coaching son of Paul Brown?
Well, you couldn't do what I did last week when I wrote that Art Modell had the honor of firing the two best coaches of all time, Paul Brown and Bill Belichick.
I tell you, that's close. That could be right. I mean, that could be. I'm trying to think who else. I'm thinking some people put Bill Walsh in there. Certainly two of the top four. Bill Walsh or somebody.
I'd put
Vince Lombardi. I don't know.
I would put Bill Belichick ahead of Vince Lombardi.
But if you go like this, Vince Lombardi had Bart Starr. Paul Brown had Otto Graham.
Yes, he
What
did.
did Paul Brown win after Otto Graham?
Nothing.
Nothing. Not that he still was a great coach, but nothing.
Right.
Name another guy. Bill Walsh had Joe Montana. And
Okay.
then he has Steve Young. Did the quarterback make the coach or the coach make the quarterback? The quarterback was pretty good to begin with. But the classic thing about the Patriots, Bill Belichick sort of had very little input on the drafting of Tom Brady. It was a sixth-round pick.
Sixth-round pick, you guys do it.
Yeah, it was. Scott Pioli took it. And Pioli took, and I'll tell you the story. One day, Pioli was like had the title of general manager. And I was sitting with Shapiro and Pioli. This was like in Winter Haven, way back in the old days. Remember, his friends were there. And we're just talking about that. And Pioli goes, look, I like to be the guy that drafted Tom Brady. It's great. He said, but if I were that smart, why did I wait to the sixth round? He goes, you at least take him in the second or third round.
No, he was that smart. He knew nobody else was going to take him.
And he said the funny thing was we got him in, and we're watching them. We're watching him and Bledsoe throw the ball. And we're going, oh, my goodness. He's almost better than Bledsoe right now. Yeah. And he just kind of walked in off the street. But they had no clue.
Right. If they knew, you're right. If they knew he's a first-round pick.
I mean,
here's what bothers me. When you talk about quarterbacks or drafting, and you say, well, you can always get a guy in the sixth round. Look at New England. No, that's a once in a generation, a once in a lifetime.
Yeah, and Tony
NFL
Romo
lifetime.
wasn't drafted. Yeah, I know, but right.
Doesn't mean there's a sixth rounder out there waiting to beat Tom Brady.
I mean, go ahead. If you look at our top young quarterbacks right now, Jared Goff, number 1 pick, Patrick Mahomes, number 10 pick, Baker Mayfield, number 1 pick.
Right. There's
Carson
no
Wentz,
book on
number
that.
2 pick.
Yeah. Nope.
Overall, not round, pick.
No book on that. That's for sure. And you have to live and die with that decision. Maybe your whole career.
Yeah. I mean, basically, John Dorsey, the revival of his career was really resting on getting that quarterback situation right with Baker Mayfield.
Right.
And that's why he was going ballistic watching what was Hugh and Haley not only fighting internally, but what they were doing to his young quarterback.
Right. Well, the other thing is Jimmy Haslam better make sure he's got Dorsey locked up. Because
I think he's got 4 years.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope on some impetuous decision he casts him astray. You don't want to see that. I don't even know what I just said.
Don't go there.
Don't go. I want to see John Dorsey here for a lot of years. I want to see Baker Mayfield here for a lot of years.
I'm feeling too good about stuff right now. Don't go there.
Right. I do want you to call. Lines are open. You can get in right now. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. You see it at the bottom of your screen, as well as the email address during the show. This is not, if you need to email me for something else, that's an entirely different email. If you want to get to me personally, you can't get to me as the one you can on the show, which you see right there, reallesLevine@gmail.com. I don't make them up. I just read them. 216.
So what are you going to read next?
216, no, I'll do this one by heart. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. I will now read headlines for the day. Brought to you by Northfield Park, your home for live and simulcast racing. Roger Goodell, who's been strangely hiding for the last week, he says the NFL needs to do better. No kidding, Raj.
That's how you make $8 million a year and $48 million for 6.
I thought it was 44 a year.
Maybe it is.
I think it is.
Oh, that's right. He's got some kind of like profit sharing.
Yeah. He's got a good one.
Yeah, the base is 8, but it kicks up to whatever. Yeah.
Cavaliers win 2 in a row. Haven't been able to say that much this year.
One other time.
They host Dallas on Saturday, going for 3 in a row at home. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/More Sports and Les Levine, with new content added each and every day. When we read your comments, your picture will pop up there, your wording and all that stuff. Even your bad spelling will show up. We'll come back.
I've had some of my own, yeah.
Have you really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. We'll come back in a moment. terry-pluto, the 10-time, unless you've won it more, 10-time Sports Writer of the Year in the state of Ohio, is with us. We're on cleveland.com exclusively. More Sports and Les Levine continues in a moment.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Terry, let's check out birthdays for today. Brooks Lawrence, born on this date, 1925. Davy Johnson, player, manager, 1943. Robin Banks, 1947. Michael Thompson, Jalen Rose, and Cameron Waite. I haven't been able to understand the resurgence of Jalen Rose, a member of the Fab Four.
He's had a tremendous media career.
Yeah, where'd that come from? He didn't do it. He didn't do it early on.
No, he built himself up. Yeah. I remember I interviewed Steve Fisher a long time ago about the Fab Four, and he was talking about the different guys, and he said, the guy that might have been the smartest of the bunch was Jalen Rose.
Oh.
I mean, you think about it, too, all those guys, Juwan Howard's an assistant with somebody in the NBA.
Right.
I think that Billy King is like a top high school coach or something down in Texas, so... those guys did pretty well, but that surprised me at that point.
Yeah, Jalen Rose is a surprise to me, too. God bless him. Good luck to him. 216-575-0403. I mentioned earlier about following us on Facebook, and we'd put your picture up and your quote. So let's take a look at what happened. Terry, this week we had a question. Who do you consider the greatest athlete in Cleveland sports history? What hits you before we start reading some of these?
Bob Feller, I started with.
All right. Well,
Jim Brown, probably. I just look here.
You're forgetting your Akron guy.
And then LeBron. Probably if you do the three, baseball, basketball, football.
Right. But if we put it all together, let's see what the answers were. Peter Butler. In my lifetime list, it would have to be Jim Brown, number 32. There are many runners-up, but of course, he was superb in his day, and he is still involved with the club. I don't know how involved he is with the club, but he's getting a paycheck. Remember when LeBron bowed down to him at a Cavs game? Yes, I do.
I thought that was good.
Yeah. Glenn Berger says, a great question. Jim Brown was the greatest running back in history. LeBron James will go down as one of the very best NBA players, but the fact that he left Cleveland twice and has played at least 5 seasons away from Cleveland will always bother me. How about this one? Jack Williams says Jesse Owens.
That's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Wayne Richard Lyons, from his sports career to service in WW2, there is nobody who comes near Bob Feller. Loved his outlook on baseball after he retired. Andy Mees says the obvious answer. Well, no, it's not. There's a lot of questions about this.
It depends on your age.
Yeah, that's true.
It really does.
Obvious answer, LeBron James. Not only is he talented enough to play each and every position in the NBA, but he could have been a phenomenal wide receiver or perhaps tight end in the NFL if he decided to go in that direction. Len Gold says, it depends on the era you lived in. I watched Jim Brown, who was the best in his day, LeBron in his second tour of duty in Cleveland, Bob Feller in his day, although I never saw him play. In hockey circles, Freddie Glover of the Barons was the best.
I saw him play. My dad used to get tickets to the Barons games in the 60s.
Timothy Bober, Casey Blake, right, Les?
No, Lonnie Chisenhall.
Well, Casey Blake was the second greatest athlete from Iowa of all time.
He was a great athlete.
Right behind Bill, or behind Bob Feller. You know, Bob Feller, we can only smile when we talk about him because he was as unique as possible. And I've told this story before. I don't know if I ever told you the first time I met him. Did I ever tell you that? I'm playing sandlot ball for the Go team in Cleveland Sandlots in the 60s. And Bob Feller had 2 sons who played on one of the teams, and he was the assistant coach. He wasn't good enough to be the manager. So we were playing at Gordon Park. You know where Gordon Park is? And
I went 0 for 4 there. Go ahead. Name any of these diamonds. I'll tell you, I went 0 for 3. I went 0 for 4.
Yeah.
You know.
So Bob is the coach on the other team, and it's a 7:30 start.
Yeah.
Our team had the infield from 7 to 7:15, and their team had it 7:15 to 7:30. So I'm taking ground balls at second base, and I feel something go by me, and I look. A bat had flown by me, and there was not a bat that flies, a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Landed between me as the second baseman position and second base itself, so there were 4 or 5 bats. And then I look up at the home plate, and there's Bob with a bat in his hand saying, "All right, boys, it's 7:16. Get off the field."
Oh.
Nice meeting you, Bob.
Well, the first few years I met him, he called me Tony. But that's
Tony?
okay. Tony. Tony, Terry. A couple other people have done that over the
Right.
years. And you know, as I've gotten older, I got nothing to say about that because I'm trashing names left and right also.
Well, Bob
Larry.
Feller, what I enjoyed with Bob Feller is stuff that he would say, right? Like you'd say, "No, Bob, maybe you shouldn't say that." But he told me a story, I think I was with Jim Ingram, maybe not. He was telling the story about his opening day no-hitter in 1940. And what's his name, the great White Sox player who fouled the ball off all the
Luke
time?
Appling.
Luke Appling. Bob gets a 2-2 count on him in the 8th or 9th inning, and Appling fouls off 4 pitches in a row. And Bob says, "The heck with this. I'm just going to walk him. Nobody's going to know the difference." So he throws one close but outside. Then he throws one close, high and inside. And he walks Appling. And he got on to the next guy and moved on to get his no-hitter. The strange part about that, as he said, is the guy who batted after Appling was not noted as a great hitter, but he hit a ball between first and second, and they made a great play on him defensively, and the no-hitter held up. But you hear it from that guy. That's pretty nice to do.
Bob was known sometimes to say racially insensitive things. But the flip side is Bob also, he and Satchel Paige, remember, they toured around. Bob, and he could correctly say this, made more money in terms of these barnstorming tours for the Negro League players at that time than anybody else. He also had more respect for them because he played against them. And I remember when Buck O'Neil was up for the Veterans Committee to get into the Hall of Fame, and he didn't get it, Bob unleashed this tirade, and I played against Buck O'Neil, and I forgot who they put in. He goes, "That guy wasn't half the player Buck O'Neil."
Right.
And Buck toured with us, and he played against the best. And he began listing who were the good players from there and who were the most overrated. And I guess he had called up 3 guys on the Veterans Committee, just ripped into them for not putting Buck O'Neil on.
Right.
And, he came out of, again, a different generation, but I saw this man's heart for a guy who was, I think, just an acquaintance, not a real close friend, who he felt was actually dealt a racial injustice by the Hall of Fame. And so that was a cool thing.
Yeah, 216-575-0403 is the number to call. And he still harbored resentment against Al Lopez for not letting him pitch starting Game 4 of the 1954 series. He was going to start Game 5 if it went to Game 5. It didn't. Yeah. I think he went with Bob. I think Lopez went with Bob Lemon in Game 4.
Short rest or something, yeah. Yeah, he did. But, Bob, you look at that. I remember in 1946, I wish I had the numbers exactly in front of me. Maybe we can get that on a break. He pitched like 300 and some innings and struck out a staggering amount of
Well, he saved
batters.
up 3 years in the Army, in the Navy.
He sort of did. But it's like, you would never do that now, even if you're like normally, much less a guy just got out of the service. And then after that, actually, he never was as big a strikeout pitcher. And he told me that he hurt his arm towards the tail end of that season.
Did he figure too many pitches?
Too many pitches and slipping. And, he was still good after that.
His most recent quote about the modern day was one that I think he wasn't happy that he was asked the question, but it turned out he was right in his answer, talking about Steven Strasburg when he pitched at then Jacobs Field. And they asked Bob, "But what do you think about Strasburg being the next 300-game winner?" And he says, "See me at 100, and then we'll discuss it."
Yeah,
and he was right.
He was right, and that was the thing there. We always want to, push these guys to these greatness levels when they haven't been around for very long. I mean, in my mind, LeBron did not become in the discussion of the greatest 3 of all time or 5 or whatever until he came back to Cleveland.
Right, and put another year
in and won a title here. That suddenly vaulted him in my mind, not just because it was Cleveland, but how difficult it was to do. And then we saw, I'll say this year, that last playoffs with LeBron here, that was the best LeBron I'd ever seen.
Sensational.
2018.
Do you think he's missed 18 games now?
Yeah.
18 on the.
They've won 5 of whatever he's missed.
Do you think we've always talked about his superhuman body and superhuman conditioning and all that stuff. Now he's 34. Are we reaching a point where we should be concerned about the rest of his career?
He's probably paying for some of those miles. Yeah. He really is. And I was talking to somebody who was very close to their negotiations, and that's part of the reason they actually went for a longer contract. You don't think he's going to get hurt,
Right.
but the calendar tells you something else.
Yeah. Well, you'd think he was super. Well, how about Tom Brady? You'd
Yeah.
think, how's he carrying on at this age and this rate? Pretty amazing.
One of the biggest differences, though, is that how all the playoff games LeBron has, and then the huge minutes he plays in
It's
those
like two
playoff
extra
games.
innings, two extra seasons.
Yeah, it really almost, basically you're looking at, you play about 22 extra games to go to the finals and lose or whatever.
Right.
But on top of it, they always talk about, they're always trying to measure how much stress this puts on the body and that.
Right.
I mean, it's
And-
one
and
thing
he-
playing
and all
against
the
the
hits
Hawks.
that he takes.
It's one thing playing against the Hawks in February and you play 35 minutes and kind of coast to 28 points. It's another thing going against the entire Golden State defense.
Right.
Or remember the Celtics, they went after him with everything they possibly
He's
could.
getting hit every time he touched the ball. Northfield Park is your home for live and simulcast racing. You can catch the excitement of harness racing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as well as Saturday evenings with a 6 p.m. post time, open early every day for simulcast action from the top thoroughbred and harness tracks all around the world. Free admission, free parking every day. That's at Northfield Park. Terry-Pluto and I return in a moment. More sports and Les Levine is seen exclusively on cleveland.com.
Your basement is damp, dirty, and not somewhere you want to spend time. Let Naturestone Flooring transform your basement into a true extension of your home. Naturestone's proprietary hydrostatic ports allow water to simply evaporate, so no mold or mildew. Plus, it has a higher insulation rating than carpet and is warmer than linoleum, vinyl, wood, or tile.
Schedule your free in-home estimate easily online today and get up to 50% off.
Naturestone is the affordable basement floor solution that beautifies your home. Naturestone, the only concrete solution.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
All right, how come quickie time, Terry? How come the Cavs are called the wine and gold, but they never wear wine and gold?
Because they're wearing blue.
They're wearing every combination of every color except wine and gold. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Troy in Cleveland called that number. Troy, go ahead. You're on with Terry-Pluto. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to say the Cleveland Browns is doing great. I'm a fan of them, and they're doing great stuff. I'm enjoying them, and it seems like the back in the old days.
How old the days you talking about, Troy?
I'm talking about back in
Well, who do you remember, Mo? Who's the first guy you really remember?
I can't remember his name.
Okay.
But the time when we went to the playoff.
In the 60s?
Yeah, back in there.
Yeah.
Like
that would be
Frank
Jim
Ryan
Brown,
and
Frank
Jim Brown and
Gary Collins,
Warfield.
Paul Warfield also. Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
They kind of looking like them. And
Well,
if
I
the
hope
coach-
so.
the coach stay on his job and stay on their neck, they're going to be great.
All right, Troy, thank you so much. Appreciate the call.
And look,
Yeah.
and with the Cavaliers, we need a great coach. When we get a great coach that won't give them no slack and work them, they're going to be good too.
Very good. Thank you. Thank
They
you.
just don't have no leader no more. You know, the leader gone.
The leader's
LeBron
gone.
But I think LeBron is coming back because they signed LeBron 4 years and they signed Kevin Love 4 years. I think it's a trick in that. I think he's coming back after his 4 years up.
Okay.
And the Cavaliers will be to together to win another championship. Then he's going to retire from the Cleveland Cavaliers.
All right, Troy, thank you for the call. This stuff you're hearing about LeBron James and Kyrie Irving playing together again, is there anything possible to this? Wake up.
The reason I'm doing that is in the NBA, you never say never with these guys. Never. You know, it's the most highest paid AAU league going. You know, seriously,
I want to play with my friends next week.
Right.
All right. You and I get questions from readers, from viewers, and all that stuff. And many times, not you, because you know the answers to stuff.
No, a lot of times, at least once or twice a month, I answer an email. I wish Hal Levelitz were around to at.
Well, I'm going to. Here comes one that you and I uniquely can answer, I think. This is from Paul Calderwood. He says, "What do you think Hal Levelitz would think of Bill Belichick as a coach? I remember reading him and how much he liked him." Number one, Hal knew before anybody knew that he was going to be a great coach. I don't know what he saw, what he did, but he knew. He was his staunchest supporter.
Yeah, he had like 3 supporters that I remember. Casey Coleman also thought Bill was going to be good. And I remember I had a discussion with Doug Deacon once. And in fact, I said to Deacon, why would anybody want to play for this guy? I mean, he's dismal, you know, the personality. And Deacon said, if you're remember, he was a former player. He said, if you're a player and if you feel this guy knows what he's doing and he could make you money, you'll play for him. And he said, I could tell you right now, Belichick, you know, tactically or whatever, was really good. That's what he said.
Right. But then he leaves here. And by the way, people keep saying the media and the fans fired Bill Belichick. No, Art Modell fired him once they got to Baltimore. But he still had to take 5 years off. He coached 5 years here. I don't know what he would have done in year 5 if the team wasn't going to be moving and people found out about it, because year 4 they made the playoffs, right, in '94.
But actually, he was already running through quarterbacks. But at that point, he'd become disgruntled with Testaverde and was playing Eric Zaire for a while.
Yeah, started Eric Zaire. And, of course, we know about Todd Philcox instead of Bernie.
It's hard to know what because the moment the move was announced, it just
the team
set everything
couldn't win
sideways.
anything. They had a winning record when it was announced.
And all the coaches are worried they're going to be fired and what's going to happen.
Right.
It was just, and then those were some of the ugliest Sundays.
Okay, so there. Casey Coleman, Hal,
and
Deacon, and Pat McCabe of WHK also had it. But that's.
I mean, I never saw it coming. I remember Michael Holley, who was writing for the Boston Globe at the time. Now is a big-time radio host there, and he had a kid from Akron and worked at the Beacon where they're playing deal where he called me about they're hiring Belichick or whatever, and I'm like, Michael, I can't believe this. You know, it's just.
It happened.
It happened. I said, defensive coordinator anytime, sure, but the whole deal?
Tom Clark wants to know why in the world the Browns don't have a turf field at the First Energy. Same reason they don't have a retractable dome, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, I was trying to think of any stadium outside in the NFL that has a turf field that's not a dome or whatever. I can't come up with any. Maybe there is one, but...
You know, the other night, going back to that best athlete, I had always thought Jim Brown not only was the best in Cleveland, I thought he was the best in the history of the NFL. Then somebody said, yeah, but he only won one title in 1964. Judging a quarterback versus a running back and how many titles, it's 2 separate things.
Can you imagine if it was Otto Graham and Jim Brown?
A lot of what?
Otto Graham and Jim Brown together with Paul Brown. Oh, my goodness.
Well, here's the other thing. This also came up. In that championship game against Baltimore, Gary Collins scores 3 touchdown passes. And all the scoring for the Browns came in 27-0. All the scoring comes in the second half. The game is different today because, and you have Jim Brown, you get a 1 touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns. You're just running the clock with Jim Brown. Mm-hmm. They weren't running the clock. They were throwing the ball to Gary Collins. And when you fake it to Jim Brown and throw it deep, you might be buying yourself some time, too. Well, here's what happened. I had read a story about Don Shula. And in those days, when the Pro Bowl game was played, it was really played, and they tried to win. Yeah. And it was Shula coaching against Blanton Collier. Mm-hmm. And they went out and went after Frank Ryan and separated his shoulder. Mm. You know, I was trying to think the quarterbacks that Ryan had. The quarterbacks that Jim Brown had. You know, Frank Ryan would be one. Bill Nelson.
He had Jim Nanowski played a little bit, Milt Plum.
Right.
None of those guys is going to go to Canton unless they're sort of buying their way into the Hall
How
of Fame.
about Babe Pirelli?
Babe Pirelli. I mean, decent, but nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we got a good one now, don't we, in Baker Mayfield?
I'm afraid to say anything because I didn't know what a good Browns quarterback really looked like for a long
well,
time.
we know now.
And now
I
we
think.
know.
Well,
because of less. And you look at his rookie year, and you compare it to. I did this in a story about a week or two ago to Carson Wentz, Jared Goff. Mahomes is kind of funky because really his rookie year is his second year, and he blew the doors off it. But his rookie year here in Cleveland is way past most of the other guys in their rookie years. And he did it taking over a team that was 0-16 with a coaching change at midseason and a different offensive coordinator.
And not supposed to be playing at all anyway.
Right. It's not like he dropped into the Pittsburgh Steelers like Ben Roethlisberger did that, where that was, they always say it was a good race car to drive.
Right. All right, so they're going to announce the Rookie of the Year sometime over the weekend. So let's take a look at the 5 rookies who are up for this award. And you see it right here. You see Baker Mayfield and some pretty impressive numbers. 37-25 passing yards, 27 passing touchdowns, most by any NFL rookie, and at least 1 touchdown pass in 13 consecutive games.
How about this when they don't have it up there? I think it's 19 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions in the red zone.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Then it continues on. Yeah. Here you got Nick Chubb, who was tremendous for the Browns. He had 1,000 yards and then he lost 1,000 yards.
I know, the poor guy, yeah.
I wonder if he's got a bonus if he hit 1,000 yards. Anyway, 92-yard touchdown run, that versus Atlanta, and 10 total touchdowns on the season. We continue on our cast of characters. Saquon Barkley, a lot of people wanted him to be chosen first by the Browns. And
he's a heck of a player.
Yeah, 2,028 yards from scrimmage, 91 receptions, NFL rookie record, and 15 total TDs. That's 3 of them. Now we go to 4. Philip Lindsay, 2018 Rookie of the Year finalist. He 1,037 rushing yards, and 3rd undrafted rookie since 1970 to have at least 1,000 rushing yards. And he had 10 touchdowns also in our final.
The Browns shut him down when he played in Denver.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Darius Leonard, 163 tackles, led the NFL. The only NFL player with at least 100 tackles and 7 sacks in 2018. 4 fumbles forced, 2 fumbles recovered, and 2 interceptions. Just by looking at that alone, that's in any given year, that would be enough.
But basically, there's only 2 guys. It's Barkley or Baker. And as great as Barkley was, and he is, the quarterback is a game changer. You just kind of look at what Saquon did with the Giants, and he helped them, but they only won 5 games, and what Baker did in Cleveland.
Right behind you is a picture of Cedi Osman. I don't know if you can see it. Mm-hmm. I think he was separated at birth from Jimmy Fallon.
I have not thought about this.
Well, start
you think
thinking about
things that I don't think about, Liz.
That may very well be true.
Maybe
which
I
is not
should
good
be
for
thinking
either
about
of us.
these things.
216-575-0403 is the number to call. Let's take a break. Facebook.com, the place to find us. And we can find you also, as we did with the question about the best athlete. New content is posted each and every day on Facebook.com. More Sports and Les Levine continues with Terry-Pluto exclusively on cleveland.com.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. you're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
It takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling to bring the heat when things get chilly. Find us at 440-449-HEAT.
Terry, let's take a look at this date in sports history, January 30th, 1971. UCLA begins an 88-game consecutive winning streak. The team included Bill Walton, Henry Bibby, Jamal Wilkes, Larry Farmer, and Sven Nader. That's a pretty good team to go with.
I just remember, I believe, I can't remember how Sven Nader ended up somewhere. It was a coin
Nader
flip.
was in Utah.
Yeah, right. It was a coin flip
there.
of the GM told me like if they got the coin flip, it was going to get some Hall of Famer, but no, I got Sven Nader.
Somebody mentioned getting a good coach for the Cavaliers. Does Larry Drew have any chance at all to stay on as head coach?
Probably not, but I'll tell you, let's see how this finishes out, because I think you know what you're going to see. They're going to win some games with Larry. Not a lot, but some. Because you know why?
What do you see? Because I see blowouts.
Yeah, but I see as he starts to get some pieces back, he's steady.
Steady as a coach.
Yes,
yeah.
And as a person. That's what they needed here, because this is going to be hard. Just like they used to, knock Byron Scott. What Byron Scott did here to hold the fort for a couple of years was really admirable.
Right.
Because you're being told you have no chance. And so...
He might have been one of the nicest guys to come through town.
Byron Scott, yeah. And Drew is too.
Yeah.
Tactically, you're sitting there going, let's drop this play for, Cedi Osman to, let's run a run four like the LeBron play, card out for him. Really? That's what you want to do?
Well, that's part of the reason everybody said, well, look at the record the Cavs had without LeBron James. Yeah, because everything went through him.
Went through him, yeah. And they were 4-18, and just like the Lakers, I believe the Lakers are 5-12 without him right now.
Could very well be.
That's what I thought.
I think they're a game and a half or 2 games back of the Clippers for the last playoff spot. Do you think they'll get it? I think it depends on when they get LeBron back.
Yeah, when they get LeBron. I believe LeBron will drag himself out there to make sure he at least gets in the playoffs.
Right. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. And Larry Drew talked about what's going on with the Cleveland Cavaliers after the second win in a row.
I just got the news before I walked in here and, congratulating him. I think he, it's well deserved, and I think it's a big step for him. I think it's a big step for this organization. Cedi is, he's a part of this future, and if he continues to grow, he continues to develop. He has a chance to be a really special player, and just coming into, and I made reference to this, in my pregame as far as not knowing exactly, what we were going to get from Cedi coming into him coming into this season as a starter, and the whole new movement with the youth. I don't think anybody really knew exactly what we were going to get, but he has really shown that he is, that he is really ready to take that next step, and blossom into a really good NBA player, and as of lately, he has shown that he is definitely moving in that direction.
That seems like a man who can't get mad at anybody, Larry Drew.
And I know one of the things, part of the reason they got rid of Ty Lue was that, can you imagine how you would be now? How prickly he was and almost arrogant at times of that. He wasn't ready to handle it.
Cedi Osman is selected to the Rising Stars World Team. Congratulations to him. This season, 12.7 points a game. But in the last 6 games, who's this guy? Yeah. 20.3 points a game.
You know who picked Cedi Osman? David Griffin.
I was going to say Griff. Yeah.
Griffin. That was his guy.
A couple people have asked me, why hasn't he gotten a job in the league?
He has been, and we'll see if he changes, he has been wanting kind of that basketball CEO position. Like he interviewed in Philadelphia and I think Detroit, but they didn't want to give him the total power thing.
Right.
And after I think what he went through in Cleveland, that's what he's trying to get. Now, that may change. You sit out for 2 years.
Yeah, you want to work.
but that was what the deal was. And I know he was talking to one team very seriously, and they went out and threw like a $45 million offer sheet at somebody right in the middle of negotiations, which he would never do. And he said, guys, I thought you wanted me.
He's very, very good on television.
Yeah, he really is. He's good at a lot of things. And I think that actually, I don't think Kobe Altman was the worst, but he was the number 3 guy. He was just thrust into this situation.
Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Pepper Pike for BP. BP, good evening.
Gentlemen, how you doing?
Doing well. What's up?
Good, good. No, interesting talk about Cedi Osman. I know this has been sort of a lost Cavs season, but he has definitely improved this year, so that's good news. And I think the Cavs have found 4 or 5 guys that they could go forward with, and I actually think Larry Drew has done a good job, under tough circumstances, organizing the team, and I don't think he's lost any games, based on his coaching. Obviously, the talent, there's a lack of talent, there's a ton of injuries. But
you know what,
I
BP?
think,
you also want to know, if you're Larry Drew and that job is thrust upon you, you need to know what the expectation is. Is it to win games, which it can't be done? Is it to develop 2 or 3 special players and using the other guys to be the guys that are on the floor with those special players? Do you think Larry Drew was given the marching orders?
Sure. I mean, and you want to win some games. That's why now and then he'll pull Sexton at the end and go with Delly. And also you want to help Drew a little bit. That's why the Delly thing came in to bring in some draft choices. But also, they were trying to find guys that this tough year that were not going to want to burn down the locker room.
Right.
I mean, really, that was what they were doing.
Doesn't seem to be any guys like that.
No, Larry Nance Jr., that's why they gave him the extension. And then you have Delly. And Clarkson just plays hard all the time. Not always smart, but hard all the time. And so, you like you said, you're trying to develop in Cedi Osman. Sexton, to me, you just look at, I was watching
I don't know
him
what he
come
is.
in. Right, but these rookies, they're overwhelmed for the most part. They're 19 to 20 years old. They played 1 year in college, and here you go. And
they'll play one good game and 4 bad ones.
Yeah, and just physically, they still look like kids playing against men.
Right. BP, we got to move on. Thank you, as always, for the call, 216-575-0403. Tomorrow is Thursday. That means for the 893rd Thursday in a row, I'll be at Sokolowski's University Inn. What a place that is. Open 11 to 3, Monday through Friday, Friday and Saturday nights for dinner. The oldest family-owned and operated restaurant in all of northeastern Ohio. The winner of the James Beard Foundation Award. Every award there is about Cleveland food includes Sokolowski's University Inn. We'll take a break. We'll come on back with Les Levine history, Terry Pluto's favorite part of the show, right here exclusively on cleveland.com.
The concrete in your garage is uneven, cracked, pitted, and just plain ugly. Transform your garage into a welcoming entryway with Nature Stone flooring. Reduce tracked-in dirt, eliminate puddling and salt damage. Plus, Nature Stone corrects uneven concrete so you don't have to worry about tripping or slipping.
Call or go to naturestone.com to schedule your free in-home estimate today and get up to 50% off.
Nature Stone is the affordable garage floor solution that beautifies your home. Nature Stone, the only concrete solution.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
All right, it's time for this date in Les Levine sports history, January 30th, 1979. Les suggests that the Super Bowl should be 2 out of 3, playing on Sunday, Wednesday, and Sunday again. Members of the local sports media suggested that Les's press credentials be suspended for at least 8 to 10 years.
Well, let's find out if these guys are real men.
Can you imagine 2 out of 3?
Yeah. Well,
the best suggestion I ever heard. You remember Pat McCabe?
Yeah.
Used to work with Pat at WHK. He decided a way to, I've told the story 100 times, to put more excitement into hockey. He suggested using 2 pucks. And you had a decision. Should we go after the puck in the offensive end, let it go? What do we do? And the argument was, would that bring in higher scoring games or lower scoring games? Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Chuck, who's in Masery, Ohio. Chuck, good evening. Terry-Pluto with us.
Hey, good evening, Les and Terry. Hey, it's January 30th, and arguably the best relief pitcher available hasn't signed yet in Craig Kimball. Either the best or close to the best starting pitcher in Dallas Keuchel hasn't signed yet.
I think he's going back to Houston.
The 2 best position players haven't signed yet. Is that C word out there, Terry?
No, the collusion word
going on?
No, the $300 million is out there.
Yeah, the Scott Boras world is out there. The Darth Vader of all agents.
Does Boras also have Keuchel?
I'm not sure who he's got, but he sort of stalls the market, even if he doesn't have everybody.
I mean, think of the Indians and teams like that. They don't get to promote their team and season ticket sales. Although I guess they could break the chain and go ahead and sign one of the lower level guys, but they're like everybody else. They're waiting.
Yeah, you wait to see, and the problem is when they've looked at all these big contracts given guys, you tend to regret it. That's why the Indians bailed out on Encarnacion.
Right, even with 1 year left.
1 year left, their stats show he's probably going to be in for a decline.
Chuck, can you tell me any guy that signed an 8-year contract that has succeeded in fulfilling that contract, not just from a financial basis, but from a stat basis over the entire length of the contract? I can't think of any.
Actually, a name does come to mind for me.
I agree, Les. I know you've been saying that, but
A-Rod is close.
Don't you think eventually somebody's going to sign him to that 7 or 8 year contract?
Yeah, they will, and then after...
Yeah, and they're going to regret it.
I mean, just like Stanton, all of a sudden Miami signed him. I forgot how long that contract was, 7 or 10 years.
Right.
And they're about 4 years into it, and they're trying to get rid of him. And you send him to the Yankees. A-Rod, remember Texas signed him, and sent him to the Yankees.
And the Yankees aren't happy with Stanton.
And the person I've got to look how deep he is into his contract, but keeps going, is Verlander. Verlander signed a real long one.
Yeah,
he's about 5 years into that.
Yeah.
But Mickey Cabrera, boy, would they like to get rid of him.
Yeah, they're paying him over $30 million.
Yep.
Terry, do you expect any moves for the Indians before opening day? Any, at least major moves?
Nothing really comes to mind right now, so that I'm hearing. So I think that, unless they make a big trade out of nowhere, but I don't think so.
And lastly, Terry, I hope to see you at Stowe next week.
Great.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
7 p.m. Tuesday night. Come on out.
Yeah.
That'll be like my 13th consecutive year there.
Last year, but I couldn't make it. So hopefully I can make it to Stowe next week.
Well, the weather's supposed to be decent, too, so that's good.
All right, Chuck, we'll see you. Thank you for the call.
Guys.
216-575-0403, Northfield Park, your home for live and simulcast racing. You can catch it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, as well as Saturday. 6 p.m. is the post time for that. Open every day early for simulcast action from the top thoroughbred and harness tracks all around the world. It's free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. Terry and I return one more time exclusively on right here on cleveland.com.
When my dad started Nature Stone, he created a solution for age-old concrete problems: unevenness, cracking, pitting, and more. Nature Stone solves all of these problems in garages, basements, and outdoor spaces. Nature Stone is beautiful, environmentally friendly, and affordable. Plus, Nature Stone is backed by Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
Call or go to naturestone.com to schedule your free in-home estimate today and get up to 50% off.
Nature Stone, the only concrete solution.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Galucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The D-Man, Dennis Maniloff, joins us tomorrow here on More Sports and Les Levine on cleveland.com. You see us live from 6 until 7. You can archive it and play it all day long. After that, right after the show airs live, you go to facebook.com/More Sports and Les Levine. New content is posted each and every day. Let's go to the phones. Let's go. Have you ever taken a call from Texas?
No.
We're going to do that right now. Where in Texas, Mark?
I'm from Katy.
Say it again.
Katy, Texas.
For him, I know that you follow economics of Cleveland baseball, and here's what I'd like to know, Terry. The breakdown of the Indians' revenue stream, I assume there's three parts of that stream, one being TV revenue, the other one being gate revenue at the stadium, and the third being concessions. Do you know what it is percentage-wise?
I really don't. I mean, the concessions one, I know that they sold a lot of the money it would make for concessions, and it turned the company Delaware North paid for a lot of those renovations at the stadium itself. In other words, they gave them a much higher percentage than they would get at most stadiums in return.
Because they needed the money up front.
Money up front to pay for. That's how they paid for those renovations, which actually I thought was a good deal, as opposed to, you know, everybody goes and just beats the city or county over the head for every single dollar renovation.
Can't believe it's 25 years since that opened.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like in the middle of the pack or even farther of older ones. Then you have a cable TV contract. See, that's the big question. Baseball set themselves up in just a really bad situation where you have no salary cap and such a big chunk of your pie is your local cable revenue. You know, in the NFL, everybody splits that whole national TV thing by the same amount of dollars.
And I believe the local stuff is just local.
Yeah, it's just local.
You don't split it with anybody.
No, you don't. And whereas in baseball, New England Sports Network or Yankees, Madison's, the Yes Network, and out in LA, and they just crush it in terms of money compared to not just Cleveland but Pittsburgh if you look at Minnesota is not spending, Pittsburgh's not spending, Cincinnati, they're all kind of in their, a different situation economically than the other guys.
And do what Paul Dolan suggested and Mark Shapiro said, if you make the playoffs once every 5 years, that's a win-win.
Well,
the fans didn't like hearing that.
No, and that actually was, because what it didn't do, not just, I think that was actually factually wrong, because you should be good enough, especially if you're like in the Central Division. You're not competing against the Yankees and the Red Sox.
And not only that, if the Central Division is that bad, you should be just whacking up a whole bunch of numbers so that you can get a home field advantage once the playoffs start.
Right, and you want to, basically there you are sort of playing against people more in your league financially.
Right.
But I think there's the big difference, and also ticket prices. I mean, you look at what they charge in New York or Boston to go to a game versus Cleveland or Pittsburgh. Yeah. It's like half is cheap. But I think the big thing that just crushes these teams is the cable TV revenue.
Anything else, Mark?
Yeah, there is one other thing. I'm really curious about something. We know that the Cleveland Metro is losing population. And the basis of my previous question, do you think that Major League Baseball stays viable in Cleveland with that circumstance in place?
Well, yeah, thank you. Appreciate it very much. Let me put the kibosh on that. If you consider Cleveland, I think it's fair to say if you went from Avon Lake to Mentor, is that fair to say that's the east and west boundary of Cleveland Metro? And then take Painesville or Mentor and take that south toward Akron and Canton, That's not such a small. That's not such a small market.
They actually do that media markets for
Yeah.
that area. Cleveland's the 19th market.
Right.
What I've seen.
So it's right in the middle of the pack.
But what it is, Wes, it is the smallest market with Major League Baseball, NBA, and NFL.
Right.
That's the difference there. But all right. So you move the Indians. Where do you want to move them? Las Vegas? I mean, where are you going to move them?
Charlotte.
Charlotte, smaller market.
Yeah. No, you're not.
See, that's the difference there. I mean, the NFL can make it almost anywhere.
I mean, that argument about the three franchises, you always hear that when you talk about bringing hockey in, which you couldn't do because Columbus has taken over that territory. You couldn't, because of Columbus, you couldn't do that. But also, Cleveland could not clearly support 4 major league teams.
No, it's too much. I was talking, Glenn Komorowski from the Cavaliers mentioned this to me. He's the business guy. He said, we are actually a regional franchise. And he said, like, the Indians are not. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, think about it. The Indians go south. You hit Cincinnati. You go a little bit east. You hit Pittsburgh. He said,
both National League teams.
Right. But still baseball teams.
Right.
He said, whereas us, there's no team in Pittsburgh. I'm talking about the Cavaliers.
No, I think Atlanta might be the closest.
No, right. You go down Charlotte. You run into Charlotte. He goes, we have a lot of fans from Western Pennsylvania, a lot of fans from Kentucky, Cincinnati, Kentucky area. You guess Indiana, I guess you would say that. But he said really the only kind of team where we bump against the same team as the Indians is Detroit.
Right.
So that's the problem there. It not only hurts Cleveland, but it hurts Cincinnati or Pittsburgh. The range for their cable TV contract is not that big. And Les, baseball just doesn't want to deal with it. It needs at least a salary cap. It just does. It always has needed it.
Grandfather the big salary guys and then move on from there. Thanks to Terry-Pluto, 10-time Sports Writer of the Year in the state of Ohio. We'll see you tomorrow night with the D-Man, Dennis Maniloff. Of all the shows I've ever done, this was the most recent.